thing we have to fear is
in war.
fear itself.
There is no substitute for victory.
Let us never negotiate out of fear.
We stand undivided, forever united, fighting hand in hand for the liberty we burn, for glory and honor, for our sons and daughters, ever mindful of the lessons we've learned. Let the torch of freedom burn.
You found your way to the intersection of faith and politics. This is WallBuilders Live, and you found us on Friday, which means it's Good News Friday. We're going to bring you some good news from across the nation. I'm Rick Green here with David Barton and Tim Barton. Guys, probably my favorite day of the week because y'all give me such a pick-me-up with all the good news.
Well, I got a piece that is really, I'm excited about this. It's something that we've gotten a hold of, and now we've passed it on to our legislators across the nation, and they're introducing it in the states. But, Rick, I'm going to go back a few years. I've talked before about what's called the Intercollegiate Studies Institute. They're a group out there that studies what kids know in America and in school, particularly related to government and economics and civics and et cetera. And they have reported, and they point out just how poorly our kids know about our own nation government. So one of the things they did for several years now, and I really love what they did a few years ago, was they understood that if you come to America, if you come off the polar ice cap, north or south, wherever it is, you come to America and you go, I didn't even know America existed. I kind of like this place. I want to live here. Well, you want to live here, you got to go through the immigration course, and there's a test you're going to have to take with 100 questions on it because you can't live in America if you don't know the basics about America. So 100 questions, every person who is an immigrant to America who lives here, becomes a citizen, has to pass these 100 questions. Well,
you mean legal immigrant, right?
Legal immigrant. I'm talking a legal immigrant that comes here to be a citizen.
So not every immigrant. But everyone that goes through the process.
Everybody who becomes a citizen. Every immigrant who becomes a citizen has to pass this test.
Not by the wave of a hand or a pen or a phone becoming a citizen.
They gotta,
So not that kind of amnesty. I'm just.
It's not the amnesty.
Being clear.
And by the way, we saw that the president's also saying, oh, by the way, if I gave you that executive amnesty with my pen and my phone, you also get tax returns. You also get IRS bonuses, and you go, what?
Which is convenient because I don't think they're even paying taxes, and yet they're getting tax returns.
And that kind
That's
of
a
interesting
great
how
deal.
that works.
I want to be part of that program.
You're in the wrong country, bro.
If I leave and come back illegally?
If you come back illegally, we can think about it.
Okay.
Here's a good question. If you leave, can you come back illegally if you're already a citizen so you can get all those benefits? We got to look into that,
It's
guys.
complicated.
If I break the law, can I get more benefits? So back to this test. What they did is they took 13 of the easiest questions off this 100-question test, and they gave it to kids who have finished their high school, and adults who have lived here their whole life. They're American citizens, been here their whole life. They gave them 13 easiest questions, and 71% of Americans failed the 13 easiest questions. So 71% of people who have lived here their whole life don't know enough to even pass the 13 easiest questions on the test.
And by easiest, it's basic. So easy is obviously relative to somebody's standard, but they're thinking this is basic information.
Yeah, name the three branches of government kind of stuff.
Three branches of government. I mean, not complicated. So very basic American knowledge for the American process.
And 71%. Now, they also gave it to elected officials, and 78% of elected officials failed the test. So while we have dumb citizens, we got stupid elected officials. I don't know how to characterize that. They're worse.
It's not good.
So what has happened, Arizona now has become the first state to say you cannot graduate from our high school if you cannot pass the immigration test. So that is now the exit exam for kids coming out of high school. Is you got to pass this 100-question you got to know enough to be a citizen like the immigrants do. And so now a dozen states have picked this up, and they said, that's a great idea. And this is a first step in revolutionizing even basic civic knowledge in America.
Which is, it's really great news that states are doing this. It's also very telling of the education system. When you have kids graduating from school that don't know the basic civics or government questions responsible to become an American citizen, it's very telling where the education system is, but it's great that we have legislators that are working to put a step in the process to fix this, saying, no, we're going to make sure you know what it takes to be an American, just the base knowledge that is necessary. So that's really encouraging news.
Yeah, good stuff. Good news, guys. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have Ted Baehr with us from movieguide.org, talk about some of the good news. Yes, good news coming out of Hollywood, and then more good news from across the nation after that. Stay with us. Back in a moment on WallBuilders Live.
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. Revisions today often assert that our founding fathers were atheists or agnostics or deists. This charge is not new. In fact, Patrick Henry was even called a deist in his lifetime. Clearly, no one could question his patriotism, but Henry was hurt that they would question his Christianity. Against the charge that he was a deist, Patrick Henry thundered, "Deism, with me, is but another name for vice and depravity. I hear it is said by the deists that I am one of their number, and indeed, that some good people think I am no Christian. This thought gives me much more pain than being called a traitor. Being a Christian is a character which I prize far above all this world has or can boast." Patrick Henry was quick to refute the charge of deism and to declare his open belief as a Christian.
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact WallBuilders at 1-800-8-REBUILD.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back to the intersection of faith and politics. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live. Our good friend, Dr. Ted Baehr from MovieGuide.org is with us. Dr. Baehr, always good to have you, sir.
Well, it's great to be with you, and I hope all is going well in Texas, because California could use a little more Texans here instead of the other way around.
Well, we love being a great influence on California.
Amen.
Well, you guys do great work there at Movie Guide. Thanks for all that you're doing, and thanks for the great award show you guys do every year. I understand you're going to air it again. Last year you did that for the first time. It was the first time it was really big and advertised, and you had great success actually airing it on television.
Well, we've done it a couple of times on Hallmark and Hallmark Movie, but now we've moved to a more secular Hollywood channel. So to get faith and freedom and values and really patriotic content and Christian content on the Reels channel is quite extraordinary. And now this year the head of the Reels channel is coming to our gala, and they're promoting it even more heavily than last year. And we've got a star-studded cast, so it's going to be absolutely terrific when it hits the on February 21st at 7 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be absolutely incredible.
All right, tune in, folks. February 21st, 7 p.m. on Reels Channel. You'll get to see the 23rd Annual Faith and Values Awards ceremony. So, Dr. Baehr, how was, since we hadn't had a chance to have you on towards the end of the year, how was 2014 for us in terms of faith and values in our movies and television?
Well, in some ways, in almost every way, it was better than it has been for a long time.
Yeah.
You have, for 2 years in a row, we have 60% of the movies with positive Christian content. Now, that doesn't mean the whole movie was Christian, but like American Sniper, you've got a church scene at the beginning, and then his father telling him as Christians, you have sheep, and then you have wolves, and then you have sheepdogs, which is the shepherd. So there's some really good content in a lot of movies, including ones you don't expect, like Captain America has, again, the Bible featured in a couple of places, Bible verses featured in it, and redemptive elements. So this is quite incredible, because if you look back 30 years in the 70s or 40 years in the 70s when Hollywood Babylon was written, most of the movies that featured a priest or a minister showed him with a knife in his hand about to kill somebody. So we've changed that dynamic by showing Hollywood they can make more money, like American Sniper, by being positive about Jesus and faith and values. The other side of it is we have some really solid movies, especially from independents, like God's Not Dead and Heaven is for Real, movies that are filled with faith and value. And another good point, although you and I can, get upset that they didn't do as good a job, is that at least the major studios were trying. Sony did Heaven is for Real, and Fox and Paramount did two other movies that I'm not going to mention because I don't want to get it, but at least they're trying.
Yeah.
And this year and every year they're getting better. And the good news is now the studios are sending us scripts, like Warner Brothers sent us a script for King David, and we analyzed it. We were just on the set in Italy for a movie from Universal about Christ the Lord. Again, we fixed a theological problem. It had the Homoousian conflict, which probably nobody listening to you cares about except for David Barton. So, and you. So we fixed those little details, and the more we can get it to be accurate, the better it is. So the good news is there's more movies with faith and values. It's going to increase even more this year. and they're looking to make them more accurate and more biblical. So all of that is moving in the right direction. Does that mean it's perfect? No. You've got evil movies, and I'll just use the word evil, like 50 Shades of Grey and, Nymphomaniac and stuff, which are just horrendous, and women should be just outraged about. So we haven't cleaned up the whole industry, and people will still see bad stuff being advertised, but it's a lot better than it was 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah, and it's interesting, like you said, that they even when they don't necessarily get it right, that they are trying, that they're going for some of those biblical stories. And now it seems to be, tell me if I'm wrong on this, it seems to be that because they've tried and they've seen some of the backlash where they got it wrong, they are seeking input more from the Christian community, coming to guys like you and others and saying, hey, we want to do this right. What do we need to do better?
Absolutely. They come to us. We have a lot of theologians, and we provided the theologians on a lot of movies. They do go and look for advice, but we do this report to the entertainment industry where we look at 150 criteria. So it's sort of like having one of those computers plug into your car and say that it's missing on the first cylinder every other beat or so. We were able to pinpoint what the problem is and say, here's how you can fix it so you can reach a broader audience. As far as I know, and as far as the studio heads tell me, there's nobody else doing that thorough an analysis, making that computer program that can look at those 150 criteria in terms of box office success.
Wow, cool. So, all right, so tell me about 2015. What do you see coming up that you're excited about?
Well, there are lots of movies coming up that have faith and values, and I'm going to put a caveat in here right now because it's very important that Hollywood is always looking at movies and saying, what are we going to balance out now, and what are we going to do next, and moving the dates around. So Christ the Lord is going to be coming out probably now in 2016, although it was supposed to be 2015. Paradise Lost is being prepared. King David is being prepared. The sequel to God's Not Dead is being produced, and we're going to screen that in the fall. I'm going to do a major screening of that. And so you have a flood of these movies, and I Believe is coming out. Lots of strong faith-based movies, lots of big Hollywood movies with Christian content in it, and we just hope that the Ten Commandments, and they'll move around. Those dates will move. Because what happens? I mean, it's like Mel Gibson brought in years ago Lethal Weapon 2, and the studio saw it and said, go back and take it to editing. And Mel said, it's supposed to be released this weekend. And I said, nope, you're going to take it back and fix it. So it's just like doing a book or a radio program or anything else. You fiddle with it until it's good enough to be released.
But it sounds like a good year, though, or even over the next 15, 18, 21 months, there's a lot of good stuff in the pipeline to come out.
Right, and you've pointed out something very serious, that quite often they'll step on each other's toes. If you release, when I came out, I was head of the organization that did The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe on CBS television back in 1979, 1980, and we were released at the same weekend as Jesus of Nazareth, which was by a friend of mine, Vincenzo Labella, and beautiful, the production. We won the Easter weekend, but having two of them come out at the same time means you're taking away from the other person's audience, which makes you feel miserable because they were both movies, television programs, TV movies that had strong faith-based content. So you hope that you can get people to spread these out. So actually, I'm happy that they push back Christ the Lord in some of these movies to give them a chance to flourish. And quite often when they release too many at the same time, and Christians, when releasing films don't seem to understand this, it just steals from everybody's box office. Yeah.
Just have some good business sense there. The cause is bigger than any one particular project anyway. Dr. Baehr, God bless you, brother. Y'all keep up the great work. Once again, let's February 21st, 7 p.m. on Reel's channel. You get to see the annual Faith and Family Awards program. You guys do them for movies, screenwriters, the whole nine yards, and big showing as well. Lots of folks come out for those.
Right, and next year we want you out here to be part of the action, and then we want David and you to make a movie so that we can give it an award.
I like the sound of that. That sounds great. Dr. Baehr, bless you, brother. Let's have you back again soon.
Okay, have a great day.
You as well. Back in a moment on WallBuilders Live.
Hi, this is Tim Barton with WallBuilders, and I want to encourage all the pastors out there with the unique opportunity that we're presenting at WallBuilders. We're doing a special tour just for pastors that you can come and learn more about the spiritual heritage of our nation. Not just seeing the sites, but understanding the significance of what they are and what they represent. We get to go through the Capitol at night, and we get to see the spiritual heritage of our founding fathers, of who we are as a nation, where we came from. We bring in congressmen that'll tell you about current legislation, about our religious liberties and freedom, and what's going on in Washington, D.C. If you're a pastor, or if you want to recommend your pastor for this trip, you can go to our website, www.wallbuilders.com, and there's a link that's for scheduling. If you click on that link, there's a section for pastor's briefing. There's more information about the dates, when it's going, how it's going to happen. If you want to know more about our nation, our religious liberties, our freedom, our spiritual heritage, this is a trip you want to be a part of.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live. Thanks to Ted Baehr for coming on and giving us some good news on our Good News Friday coming out of Hollywood. Guys, across the culture, we're getting a lot of good news. I know people tend to, stay focused on the negative, but there is a lot of good happening. Share some more good news with us.
Well, this one I have a recent poll, and the reason this poll is very encouraging to me is so often it's easy to look at our nation and see where we are and be very discouraged and feel like that the American people just don't get it. And so it's always encouraging when there's a poll that seems to indicate that Americans really oftentimes do get it. Sometimes we just have leadership that doesn't represent the American people. But we have a poll that shows the majority of Americans oppose both the policy and the procedure of Obama's amnesty. So as we now have a president who's working very diligently to make sure that all these illegal immigrants are going to have amnesty and free passes, and they get their tax rebate and everything else they get, the majority of American people are not on board with this, which is very encouraging, because it's, as we see this stuff happen, it's easy to get discouraged and go, oh my goodness, what's going on in our nation? Well, the good news is the majority of the nation isn't thinking
and
that
means
way.
it's bipartisan, because you really look at about a third of the nation is Republican, third independent, and a third is Democrat. So the fact that you're at that level indicates that this is not just a partisan view. Now, it may be more, and probably is more Republicans that hold a view of it, but nonetheless, this transcends any particular party with numbers that high.
And it's very encouraging to realize the American people recognize this is not what we want to have happen, and that's really a good step in moving that direction, is recognizing this is not where we want to go, and kind of have an idea for what we do want to do. So encouraging news, the American people are not duped by this move.
Good stuff. All right, David, what do you have?
This one comes out of the Sixth Circuit Federal Court of Appeals, and the Sixth Circuit is the one that handles Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, etc. And the Sixth Circuit upheld that states can have marriage defined as a man and a woman. Now, it's good that they did that, but what is interesting is the Supreme Court has agreed to hear this case. The Supreme Court had turned down cases, I think, out of the Fourth Circuit, which said that states cannot define marriage as a man and a woman. They let that alone, but they have taken this one. And this is all speculation from this point out, but let me speculate why I think this may be good news. We won't know till the Supreme Court issues this decision, and usually with anything that is somewhat controversial like this, they usually issue it the last part of June, and then they leave town. They go to Europe on speaking engagements or whatever. So they leave town and don't get beat up in the press, and then they come back in October. So I expect that we won't hear anything till the end of June, but nonetheless, what we've got with this case is the court did accept a case that is upheld marriage as a man and a woman. Now, the reason that's significant is we know that it is a practice of Justice Scalia. And by the way, for people who don't know, it only takes 4 of the 9 justices to vote to hear a case for it to come to the Supreme Court. So for the Supreme Court to have taken this case means that at least 4 justices want to hear this case and want to make a decision on it. The other cases, like the Virginia Circuit Court, the Virginia case that struck down their marriage law, they did not have 4 justices willing to hear that case, but they do here. And what we know is that Justice Scalia, who is often on the conservative, traditional, constitutional side, he doesn't want to be the 4th vote. In other words, if he's the 4th vote to get a case there and he doesn't believe they have 5 votes to win the case, then he votes against it in order to keep it from coming before the court, because he doesn't want it to come to the court and then get a bad decision, and that becomes the policy for the United States then on out. He would rather let something be a bad decision at a lower court, but not be the whole nation's bad decision, than to get something to the court and lose. So the fact that they've accepted this suggests to me that probably Scalia thinks they've got 5 votes to uphold marriage as a man and a woman. Otherwise, I think he would have voted against this, which is probably what he did in that Virginia case to make sure it did not come to the court. So I think that's a good thing in itself, and I think the fact that they took a decision upholding the state's ability to say what marriage is between a man and a woman, that's significant. Now, if that does actually happen, that we get 5 votes on this, then you're looking at a big landscape shift, because we've been told now for the last couple of years that, hey, on homosexual marriage, the train has left the station. You guys got to get on board. 35 states now allow, but only 4 of those 35 states have voted for it by the people. The other 31, counting the District of Columbia, has been imposed by federal judges. So if the court does indeed strike down that states can have marriage laws as a man and a woman, now you're looking at 31 states coming back online with marriage as a man and a woman, which completely changes the entire marriage debate in the country. So we'll see if this is good news or not. I'm putting this in the good news category right now for the reasons I gave with Justice Scalia and others. But I think we could be on the verge of something really good happening with marriage by the end of June.
So you said June, so they would not. We probably shouldn't hear anything between now and end of June. We're not going to get any good indications.
No,
we just had to wait till then.
What you'll get is there will be the oral arguments, and people will watch the oral arguments and make their speculations as they always do. And sometimes they're right and sometimes they're wrong. They were wrong. You can tell a lot sometimes by the way the justices ask their questions and by who asked what, and which justice helps defend the arguments. And so, they thought they knew what was going to happen when Obamacare originally came up, and it turned out that they were wrong because Roberts changed his mind, albeit it was a late change. I mean, right when they issued a decision, essentially, as opposed to the arguments. When they looked at Hobby Lobby, they were pretty right on what they predicted would happen based on the arguments that we went in court. So they can be right, they can be wrong. You'll get indications. There will be the legal experts who watch the justices, watch the arguments, watch how it went, and will think, We'll say we predict it'll go this way, or it's too close to call. Yeah, that can be accurate, but just as often it's not accurate. So we really won't get much of an indication until the court comes back with its decision, unless there's something really unusual that happens in court, and you see some of the more liberal judges come to the defense of marriage. Then that's going to raise some eyebrows and suggest that maybe we've got a better shot than what people might think.
All right, guys, got a few minutes left. Tim, what do you got left on your list?
This one is another poll, which is very encouraging. 65% of likely U.S. voters favor a program. Indiana, by the way, is the one that has kind of modeled this in their state. They have passed a law where they actually now have work requirements again on their food stamp program. So if you're getting food stamps in Indiana, you have to get a job. Well, 65% of likely voters said they favored this idea, and the idea was to limit access to food stamps to only 3 months if you were an adult without kids and you don't have a job. So if you're an adult, you're capable of work, and you're not working, you only get 3 months to find a job, and then you lose your food stamps. And by the way, the caveat was at least 20 hours a week of work, and you can maintain those food stamps. So you have to be looking, trying to find something if you're going to receive support. What was encouraging is only 24% of Americans oppose that notion. And so you have the majority of Americans going, yeah, we shouldn't be letting people just live off somebody else their whole life. They need to find a way to help provide for themselves. And it's especially encouraging based on what we've seen in our nation, especially the last 6 years under the current administration, where we've seen income security, which includes food stamps, grow by $50 billion. We've seen Social Security grow by $200 billion, and Medicare $150 billion, Medicaid $100 billion. Everything is so swelled and grown under Obama, with more and more people being taken care of, quote unquote. It's encouraging to see the American people, by and large, are saying, no, we want people to get a job and work to take care of themselves and not wait for somebody else to take care of them the whole time. So to me, that's very encouraging to see people that we believe that you should work and not just get free handouts.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I think we can squeeze in one more. We got about 60 seconds here, Dave. What do you got?
I got one from Virginia. It's good news. You know how the president can give a pardon and your record gets erased, and et cetera. Well, we have a young person here. We're going to call him CB. We're not going to use her name, but CB has now had their record expunged. They were handcuffed, shackled, taken to the police station, and that has now been removed from the record. Now, you got to understand that what makes it significant, this was a pre-kindergarten kid, a 4-year-old kid in class who got mad and threw some things on the floor. They called the police. The police came, handcuffed him, arrested him, and took him to the sheriff's department. Wait a minute, 4-year-old threw some stuff on the floor, got mad, and you handcuff him and take. Yeah, John Whitehead, our friend with Rutherford Institute, has one of these cases about once a week where because a kid gets mad or whatever, they come and handcuff a 4-year-old and throw him in the back of a police car and take him to state, even though the kid's parents were en route to pick him up at school.
I'm all for tough love, but can you say overreaction?
Can you say overreaction? So, John Whitehead got the record cleared for this kid. It will not show his handcuff and transport to the police station, all the stuff that goes with it, and the suspension he had. Ridiculous, but it's great that it turned out the way it did.
Yeah. All right, guys, thank you for so much good news today. Folks, if you want some more good news, visit our website, wallbuilderslive.com. Click on the archive section and grab those Friday programs for Good News Friday. Thanks for listening to WallBuilders Live.
We stand on this.